Hey everybody, welcome back to Tonkotsu Ramen. Today we're doing an Iekei inspired Tonkotsu Ramen. Iekei is a style of Tonkotsu Ramen that comes from the Yokohama area. I'm just using things that I already had around my house, so this is my twist, my take on this style of ramen, but it turned out great. So yeah, let's get right into this, shall we? So for the soup, I'm going to be using some pork bones I had soaking in some water, some leftover chicken from my last Shoyu ramen video, and a small piece of beef tendon. After I had rinsed the pork bones, I remembered you usually don't soak pork bones for Iekei ramen, but oh well, this is going to be just a little bit cleaner. I'm going to be using the Instant Pot for this batch. I'm just going to get everything laid out really nicely at the bottom. If you want to do this with fresh chicken bones, that's actually better, but I'm just using what I have on hand. I'm going to add just enough water to cover, then I'm going to pressure cook this on high for 1 hour and then let it naturally release. While the soup is cooking, I'm going to make a quick tare. So the tare for Iekei doesn't seem to be that complicated. I'm using a recipe that I found online. I'm just going to measure out 90 milliliters of Usukuchi Shoyu, 90 milliliters of Koikuchi Shoyu, and get that into a small pot. And to that, I'm going to add 360 milliliters of water and 40 grams of sea salt. I'm going to give that a quick stir and then bring that to a boil. Once it's boiling, I'm going to drop the heat and keep it at a bare simmer for 1 hour. And after an hour, this thin crust kind of forms, so I turned off the heat and skimmed it off. I really don't know what this is, but the recipe said to skim it off. And then to that, you're going to add 10 grams or 2 teaspoons of crystallized umami powder. You actually probably don't need the crystallized umami powder, but this recipe called for it. It didn't really seem to dissolve and it just sat at the bottom of the container, so you can make your own choice on that. The soup is still going, so I'm going to make some Shoyu or flavored chicken oil that I'm going to use for this bowl of ramen. I'm adding some chicken skins to a small pot with a small amount of water, and I'm just going to let this cook down until all the fat is rendered out of the skin. Okay, so once all the chicken fat has rendered out of the skin, you can start to remove the skin from the pot, and what's going to be left is the schmaltz or chicken fat that you're going to flavor to make your aroma oil. If you can buy schmaltz at the store, just buy it. It's a lot easier than doing this. To the chicken fat, I'm going to add some green onion, a few cloves of garlic, and 1 slice of ginger. I'm just going to fry these at low heat until the green onions are just starting to brown and the garlic is soft. Strain it out, and that is your Shoyu for your Iekei ramen. Shoyu is one of the core components for this style of ramen, so if you want to make Iekei, you have to make this. So the soup is done pressure cooking now, and it's actually a pretty clean shintan, so I'm just going to smash up the chicken and pork bones a bit, and then I'm going to bring this all back up to a boil without the lid on. Once the soup is boiling, I'm going to add some green onion, 2 slices of ginger, and some garlic. And then I'm just going to let the soup boil like this for about 2 to 3 hours. While the soup is boiling, I'm going to make some pork shoulder chashu for this ramen. I cut up some pork butt, and then I'm going to just hit it with some salt and pepper and let it sit like this for about 10 minutes or so. Then I'm going to transfer the pork into Ziploc bags and add 10 milliliters of tare to each bag. I'm going to sous vide the pork, so I got all the air out of the bags with some water, and then I drop them into the sous vide set to 161 degrees for 3 hours. As the soup boiled, I continued to top it off with water to keep it up at the original height that I started with, and this is to prevent the emulsion from breaking. And with about 30 minutes to go, I got some Niboshi and added it to the soup. This is not a common Iekei ingredient, but I like to add a small amount of Niboshi to tonkotsu because I think it tastes good, so yeah. After the last 30 minutes, I strained out the chicken and the bones from the soup and got it chilled and put in the fridge to rest overnight. And when the chashu was done, I got that chilled in an ice bath and then got that into the fridge to rest overnight too. The last thing I'm going to prep for the day are the noodles. If you want to learn the basics on how to make noodles, I have a video that I'll link up in the top right corner and in the description below. I'm going to put the recipe for these noodles on the screen right now. As far as ingredients or techniques, they're not much different from the noodles that I made in the vegan Tonkotsu Ramen video, but Iekei noodles are usually cut a little bit fatter and a little shorter than standard noodles. They're cut to around 11 to 12 inches. This recipe should make you 4 to 6 servings depending on how clean you can cut your noodles. So after one night of resting in the fridge, I'm gonna check on my soup now to make sure that it emulsified properly, and that is some nice pork jello right there. Some people might say that this is not firm enough, but I'm getting older and I can't really handle the super thick tonkotsus anymore, so this is perfect for me. Anyways, I'm gonna peel off this layer of fat that didn't emulsify into the soup. This stuff tends to form a gross skin if you don't remove it. I'm gonna scoop out one serving of soup into a separate pot, and then I'm gonna get that heated up on the stove. For toppings, I'm going to use some hoden so that my parents grew. This is Japanese spinach, and it's a must for Iekei ramen. I'm also going to use some green onion for this bowl that also came from my parents' house. I'm just going to cut off the roots of the spinach to get them ready for cooking, and then I'm also going to cut up the green onions here. I'm gonna parboil the spinach in boiling water for about 10 seconds, and then I'm gonna get them into an ice bath to stop the cooking process. Then I'm gonna squeeze out the water and then cut it up for topping. This is the sous vide pork shoulder chashu that I made the other day. I was really happy with how it turned out, but I wish I had cut it just a little bit thinner. I'm gonna drop the noodles into boiling water and cook them for 2 minutes. And while the noodles are cooking, I'm going to add 20 milliliters of tare and 20 milliliters of chicken oil into a heated bowl, along with 300 milliliters of hot soup. When the noodles were done cooking, I strained them out and added them to the bowl. No need for noodle folds in this style. I topped with the chashu, spinach, and green onion, and some nori, all standard Iekei toppings. And that, my friends, is my take on Iekei style ramen. So the first time I tried to make this, I used 30 milliliters of tare, which was just way too salty. 20 milliliters seems just about right for me, and that's what I would recommend for anyone who's gonna give this one a try. So a lot of people love tonkotsu ramen, but the dirty little secret about tonkotsu ramen is that a lot of shops, especially in Japan, and especially the old school ones, rely heavily on MSG for flavor. And that's why it tastes so good. And this bowl definitely tasted really good. But if you're looking for an MSG-free tare, I would recommend the tare I made in the tori paitan video, and just use that instead. So you may have noticed that in a lot of my videos, I use this little wooden cutting board scraper to clean up my cutting board. I get a lot of questions about it, and to be honest, it's something that I made myself. I just carved it by hand. But I got so many questions about it that I asked my dad, who does a lot of woodworking, to see if he could make one for me a little bit easier. And he actually churned out a ton of them. So I'm gonna give these away on this channel. Well, I was gonna give it away on this channel, but it seems like YouTube doesn't really like giveaways, so I'm gonna do it on Instagram instead. So go follow me on Instagram at wayoframen for your chance to win a wooden cutting board scraper handmade on Kauai by my dad. Probably gonna give some away on Discord too, so if you're not on our Discord server, you can join that with the link in the description below. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I really do appreciate all the support, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.
Don't forget to click subscribe, and don't forget to check out ryanstyles.com.
Not Ryan Styles.